Rocket Man. The electrical fireflies were hovering above Mother's dark hair to light her path. She stood in her bedroom door, looking out at me as I passed in the silent hall. "You will help me keep him here this time, won't you?" she asked. "I guess so," I said. "Please." The fireflies cast moving bits of light on her white face. "This time he mustn't go away again." "All right," I said after standing there a moment, "but it won't do any good. It's no use." She went away, and the fireflies on their electric circuits fluttered after her like an errant constellation, showing her how to walk in darkness. I heard her say faintly, "We've got to try anyway." Other fireflies followed me to my room. When the weight of my body cut a circuit in the bed, the fireflies winked out. It was midnight, and my mother and I waited, our rooms separated by darkness, in bed. The bed began to rock me and sing me. I touched a switch. The singing and rocking stopped. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to sleep at all. The night was no different from 1,000 others in our time. We would wake nights and feel the cool air turn hot, feel the fire in the wind, and see the walls burn to bright color for an instant, and then we knew his rocket was over our house. His rocket. The oak trees swaying from the concussion, and I would lie there, eyes wide, panting, and Mother in her room, her voice would come to me over the inter-room radio. "Did you feel it?" And I would answer, "That was him, all right. That was my father's ship passing over our town," a small town where space rockets never came, and we would lie awake for the next 2 hours thinking, "Now Dad's landed in Springfield. Now he's on the tarmac. Now he is signing in the papers. Now he's in the helicopter. Now he's over the river. Now the hills. Now he's settling the helicopter in at the little airport at Green Village here." And the night would be half over when on our separate cool beds Mother and I would be listening. Now he's walking down Bell Street. He always walks, never takes a cab. Now across the park, now turning the corner of Oakhurst, and now I lifted my head from my pillow. Far down the street, coming closer and closer, smartly, quickly, briskly, footsteps, now turning in at our house up the porch steps. And we were both smiling in the cool darkness, Mom and I, when we heard the front door open in recognition, speak a quiet word of welcome, and shut downstairs. 3 hours later, I turned the brass knob to their room quietly, holding my breath, balancing a darkness as big as the space between the planets, my hand out to reach the small black case at the foot of my parents' sleeping bed. Taking it, I ran silently to my room, thinking, "He won't tell me. He doesn't want me to know." And from the open case spilled his black uniform like a black nebula, stars glittering here or there, distantly, in the material. I kneaded the dark stuff in my warm hands. I smelled the planet Mars, an iron smell, and the planet Venus, a green ivy smell, the planet Mercury, a scent of sulfur and fire, and I could smell the milky moon and the hardness of the stars. I pushed the uniform into a centrifuge machine I'd built in my 9th grade shop that year, set it whirling. Soon a fine powder precipitated into a retort. Then I slid under a microscope. And while my parents slept unaware, and while our house was asleep, all the automatic bakers and servers and robot cleaners in electric slumber, I stared down upon brilliant motes of meteor dust, comet tail, and loam from far Jupiter glistening like worlds themselves, which drew me down the tube in a billion miles to space at terrific accelerations. At dawn, exhausted with my journey and fearful of discovery, I returned the box uniform to their sleeping room. Then I slept only to waken at the sound of the horn of the dry-cleaning car which stopped in the yard below. They took the black uniform box with them. It's good I didn't wait, I thought, for the uniform would be back in an hour, clean with all its destiny and travel. I slept again, with the little vial of magic dust in my pajama pocket over my beating heart. When I came downstairs, there was Dad at the breakfast table, biting into his toast. "Sleep good, Doug?" he said, as if he had been here all the time, and hadn't been gone for 3 months. "All right," I said. "Toast?" He pressed a button, and the breakfast table made me 4 pieces, golden brown. I remember my father that afternoon digging and digging in the garden like an animal after something, it seemed. There was his long, dark arms, moving swiftly, planting, tamping, fixing, cutting, pruning. His dark face, always down to the soil. His eyes, always down to what he was doing. Never up to the sky, never looking at me or Mother even, unless we knelt with him, to feel the earth soak up through the overalls at our knees, to put our hands into the black dirt and not look at the bright, crazy sky. Then he would glance to either side, to Mother or me, and give us a gentle wink and go on, bent down, face down, the sky staring at his back. That night we sat on a mechanical porch swing, which swung us and blew a wind upon us and sang to us. It was summer and moonlight, and he had lemonade to drink, and we held the cold glasses in our hands, and Dad read the stereo newspapers inserted into the special hat you put on your head when you turn the microscopic page in front of the magnifying lens if you blink 3 times in succession. Dad smoked cigarettes and told me about how it was when he was a boy in the year 1997. After a while, he said, as he had always said, "Why aren't you out playing kick the can, Doug?" I didn't say anything, but Mom said, "He does on nights when you're not here." Dad looked at me and then for the first time that day at the sky. Mother always watched him when he glanced at the stars. The first day and night when he got home, he wouldn't look at the sky much. I thought about him gardening so furiously his face almost driven into the earth, but the second night he looked at the stars a little more. Mother wasn't afraid of the sky in the day so much, but it was the night stars that she wanted to turn off, and sometimes I could almost see her reaching for a switch in her mind, but never finding it. And by the third night, maybe, Dad'd be out here on the porch until way after we were all ready for bed. And then I'd hear Mom call him up, almost like she called me from the street at times. And then I would hear Dad fitting the electric eye door lock in place with a sigh. And the next morning at breakfast, I'd glance down and see this little black case near his feet as he buttered his toast, and Mother slept late. "Well, be seeing you, Doug," he'd say, and we'd shake hands. "In about 3 months?" "Right." And he'd walk away down the street, not taking a helicopter or beetle or bus, just walking with his uniform hidden in his small underarm case. He didn't want anyone to think he was vain about being a rocket man. Mother would come out to eat breakfast, 1 piece of day toast, about an hour later. But now it was tonight, the first night, the good night, and he wasn't looking at the stars much at all. "Let's go to the television carnival," I said. "Fine," said Dad. Mother smiled at me, and we rushed off to town in a helicopter and took Dad through 1,000 exhibits to keep his face and head down with us and not looking anywhere else. And as we laughed at the funny things and looked serious at the serious ones, I thought, my father goes to Saturn and Neptune and Pluto, but he never brings me presents. Other boys whose fathers go into space bring back bits of one from Callisto and hunks of black meteor or blue sand, but I have to get my own collection, trading from other boys, the Martian rocks and the Mercurian sands which filled my room, but about which Dad would never comment. On occasion I remembered he brought something for Mother. He planted some Martian sunflowers once in our yard, but after he was gone a month and the sunflowers grew large, Mom ran out one day and cut them all down. Without thinking, as we paused at one of the 3-dimensional exhibits, I asked Dad the question I always asked, "What's it like out in space?" Mom shot me a frightened glance. It was too late. Dad stood there for a full half-minute trying to find an answer, then he shrugged. "It's the best feeling in a lifetime of best things." Then he caught himself. "Oh, it's really nothing at all. Routine. You wouldn't like it." He looked at me apprehensively. "But you always go back." "Habit." "Where are you going next?" "I haven't decided yet. I'll think it over." He always thought it over. In those days, rocket pilots were rare, and he could pick and choose, work when he liked. On the third night of his homecoming, you could see him picking and choosing among the stars. "Come on," said Mother, "let's go home." It was still early when we got home. I wanted Dad to put on his uniform. I shouldn't have asked. It always made Mother unhappy, but I could not help myself. I kept at him, though he had always refused. I had never seen him in it, and at last he said, "Oh, all right." We waited in the parlor while he went upstairs and the air flew. Mother looked at me dully as if she couldn't believe that her own son could do this to her. I glanced away. "I'm so sorry," I said. "You're not helping at all," she said. "At all." There was a whisper in the air flew a moment later. "Here I am," said Dad quietly. We looked at him in his uniform. It was glossy black with silver buttons and silver brims, the heels of black boots, and it looked as if someone had cut the arms and legs and body from a dark nebula with little faint stars glowing through it. It fit as close as a glove fits to a slender long hand. It smelled like cool air and metal and space. It smelled of fire and time. Father stood smiling awkwardly in the center of the room. "Turn around," said Mother. Her eyes were remote, looking at him. When he was gone, she never talked of him. She never said anything about anything but the weather or the condition of my neck and the need of a washcloth for it, or the fact that she didn't sleep nights. Once she said the light was too strong at night. "But there's no moon this week," I said. "There's starlight," she said. I went to the store and bought her some darker, greener shades. As I lay in bed at night, I could hear her pull them down tight to the bottom of the windows. It made a long rustling noise. Once I tried to mow the lawn. No, Mom stood in the door. Put the mower away. So the grass went 3 months at a time without cutting. Dad cut it when he came home. She wouldn't let me do anything else either, like repairing the electrical breakfast maker or the mechanical book reader. She saved everything up as if for Christmas. And then I would see Dad hammering or tinkering and always smiling at his work, and Mother smiling over him, happy. No, she never talked of him when he was gone. And as for Dad, he never did anything to make contact across the millions of miles. He said once, if I called you, I'd want to be with you. I wouldn't be happy. Once Dad said to me, your mother treats me sometimes as if I weren't here, as if I were invisible. I had seen her do it. She would look just beyond him, over his shoulder, at his chin or his hands, but never into his eyes. If she did look at his eyes, her eyes were covered in a film, like an animal going to sleep. She said yes at the right times and smiled, but always half a second later than expected. I'm not there for her, said Dad. But other days she would be there, and he would be there for her, and they would hold hands and walk around the block or take rides, and Mom's hair flying like a girl's behind her, and she would cut off all the mechanical devices in the kitchen and bake him incredible cakes and pies and cookies, looking deep into his face, her smile a real smile. But at the end of such days when he was there for her, she would always cry. And Dad would stand helpless, gazing about the room as if to find the answer, but never finding it. Dad turned slowly in his uniform for us to see. Turn around again, said Mom. The next morning Dad came rushing into the house with handfuls of tickets. Pink rocket tickets for California, blue tickets for Mexico. Come on, he said. We'll buy disposable clothes and burn them when they're soiled. Look, we take the noon rocket to L.A., the 2 o'clock helicopter to Santa Barbara, the 9 o'clock plane to Ensenada, sleep overnight, and we went to California and up and down the Pacific coast for a day and a half, settling at last on the sands of Malibu to cook wieners at night. Dad was always listening or singing or watching things on all sides of him, holding on to things as if the world were a centrifuge, going so swiftly that he might be flung off away from us at any instant. The last afternoon at Malibu, Mom was up in the hotel room. Dad lay on the sand beside me for a long time in the hot sun. Ah, he sighed, this is it. His eyes were gently closed. He lay on his back, drinking in the sun. You missed this, he said. He meant on the rocket, of course, but he never said the rocket or mentioned the rocket and all the things you couldn't have on the rocket. You couldn't have a salt wind on the rocket, or a blue sky, or a yellow sun, or Mom's cooking. You couldn't talk to your 14-year-old boy on a rocket. Let's hear it, he said at last, and I knew that now we would talk, as we had always talked, for 3 hours straight. All afternoon we would murmur back and forth in the hazy sun about my school grades, how high I could jump, how fast I could swim. Dad nodded each time I spoke and smiled and slapped my chest lightly in approval. We talked. We did not talk of rockets or space, but we talked of Mexico, where we had driven once in an ancient car, and of the butterflies we had caught in the rainforest of the green warm Mexico at noon, seeing 100 butterflies sucked to our radiator drying there, beating their blue and crimson wings, twitching, beautiful and sad. We talked of such things instead of the things I wanted to talk about, and he listened to me. That was the thing he did, as if he was trying to fill himself up with all the sound he could hear. He listened to the wind and the falling ocean and my voice, always with a rapt attention, a concentration that almost excluded physical bodies themselves and kept only the sounds. He shut his eyes to listen. I would see him listening to the lawnmower as he cut the grass by hand instead of using the remote control device, and I would see him smelling the cut grass as it sprayed up at him behind the mower in a green fount. Doug, he said about 5 in the afternoon as we were picking up our towels and heading back along the beach near the surf, I want you to promise me something. What? Don't ever be a rocket man. I stopped. I mean it, he said, because when you're out there, you want to be here. And when you're here, you want to be out there. Don't start that. Don't let it get hold of you. But you don't know what it is. Every time I'm out there, I think, if I ever go back to Earth, I'll stay there. I'll never go out again. But I go out, and I guess I'll always go out. I thought about being a rocket man for a long time, I said. He didn't hear me. I try to stay here. Last Saturday when I got home I started trying so darn hard to stay here. I remembered him in the garden sweating and all the traveling and doing and listening, and I knew he did this to convince himself that the sea and the towns of the land and his family were the only real things and the good things. But I knew where he would be tonight, looking at the Julie Orion from our front porch. Promise me you won't be like me, he said. I hesitated a while. Okay, I said. He shook my hand. Good boy, he said. The dinner was fine that night. Mom had run about the kitchen with handfuls of cinnamon and dough and pots and pans tinkling, and now a great turkey fumed on the table with dressing, cranberry sauce, peas, and pumpkin pie. "In the middle of August?" said Dad, amazed. "You won't be here for Thanksgiving." "So I won't." He sniffed it. He lifted each lid from each tureen and let the flavor steam over his sunburned face. He said, "Ah," to each. He looked at the room and his hands. He gazed at the pictures on the wall, the chairs, the table, me and Mom. He cleared his throat. I saw him make up his mind. "Lily?" "Yes." Mom looked across her table, which she had set like a wonderful silver trap, a miraculous gravy pit into which, like a struggling beast of the past caught in a tarpool, her husband might at last be caught and held, gazing out through a jail of wishbones, safe forever. Her eyes sparkled. "Lily," said Dad. "Go on," I thought crazily. "Say it quick. Say you'll stay home this time for good and never go away. Say it." Just then a passing helicopter jarred the room. The window pane shook with a crystal sound. Dad glanced at the window. The blue stars of evening were there, and the red planet Mars was rising in the east. Dad looked at Mars a full minute. Then he put his hand out blindly toward me. "May I have some peas?" he said. "Excuse me," said my mother. "I'm going to get some bread." She rushed out into the kitchen. "But there's bread on the table," I said. Dad didn't look at me as he began his meal. I couldn't sleep that night. I came downstairs at 1 in the morning, and the moonlight was like ice on all the housetops, and dew glittered in a snow field on our glass. I stood and then knew that Dad was sitting in the mechanical porch swing, gliding gently. I could see his profile tilted back, and he was watching the stars wheel over the sky. His eyes were like gray crystal there, the moon in each one. I went out and sat beside him. We glided a while in the swing. At last I said, "How many ways are there to die in space?" "1 million. Name some." "The meteors hit you, the air goes out of your rocket, or comets take you along with them. Concussion, strangulation, explosion, centrifugal force, too much acceleration, too little, the heat, the cold, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the asteroids, the planetoids, radiation. And do they bury you? They never find you. Where do you go? 1 billion miles away, traveling graves they call them. You become a meteor or a planetoid traveling forever through space." I said nothing. "One thing," he said later, "it's quick in space. Death. It's over like that. You don't linger. Most of the time you don't even know it. You're dead and that's it." He went up to bed. It was morning. Standing in the doorway, Dad listened to the yellow canary singing in its golden cage. "Well, I've decided," he said. "Next time I come home, I'm home to stay." "Dad," I said, "tell your mother that when she gets up." He said, "You mean it?" He nodded gravely. "See you in about 3 months." And there he went off down the street, carrying his uniform in a secret box, whistling and looking at the tall green trees and picking china berries off the chinaberry bush as he brushed by, tossing them ahead of him as he walked away into the bright shade of early morning. I asked Mother about a few things that morning after Father had been gone a number of hours. "Dad said that sometimes you don't act as if you see or hear him," I said, and then she explained everything to me quietly. "When he went off into space 10 years ago, I said to myself, he's dead, or as good as dead, so think of him dead. And when he comes back 3 or 4 times a year, it's not him at all. It's only a pleasant little memory or a dream. And if a memory stops or a dream stops, it can't hurt half as much. So most of the time I think of him dead. But other times I can't help myself. I bake pies and treat him as if he were alive, and then it hurts. No, it's better to think he hasn't been here for 10 years and I'll never see him again. It doesn't hurt as much. Didn't he say next time he'd settle down?" She shook her head slowly. "No, he's dead. I'm very sure of that. He'll come alive again then," I said. 10 years ago," said Mother, "I thought, what if he dies on Venus? Then we'll never be able to see Venus again. What if he dies on Mars? We'll never be able to look at Mars again, all the red in the sky without wanting to go in and lock the door. And what if he died on Jupiter or Saturn or Neptune? On those nights when the planets were high in the sky, we wouldn't want to have anything to do with the stars." "I guess not," I said. The message came the next day. The messenger gave it to me, and I read it standing on the porch. The sun was setting. Mom stood in the screen door behind me, watching me fold the message and put it in my pocket. "Mom," I said, "don't tell me anything I don't already know," she said. She didn't cry. "Well, it wasn't Mars, and it wasn't Venus, and it wasn't Jupiter or Saturn that killed him. We wouldn't have to think of him every time Jupiter or Saturn or Mars lit up the evening sky. This was different. The ship had fallen into the sun. and the sun was big and fiery and merciless, and it was always in the sky, and you couldn't get away from it. So for a long time after my father died, my mother slept through the days and wouldn't go out. We had breakfast at midnight and lunch at 3 in the morning, and dinner at the cold, dim hour of 6 a.m. We went to all-night shows and went to bed at sunrise. And for a long while, the only days we ever went out to walk were the days when it was raining or there was no sun. The fire balloons. Fire exploded over summer night lawns. You saw sparkling face of uncles and aunts. Skyrockets fell up in the brown, shining eyes of cousins on the porch. The cold, charred sticks thumped down in dry meadows far away. The very Reverend Father Joseph Daniel Peregrine opened his eyes. What a dream! He and his cousins, with their fiery play at his grandfather's ancient Ohio home so many years ago. He lay listening to the great hall of the church, the other cells where other fathers lay. Had they too, on the eye of the flight of the rocket crucifix, lain with memories of the 4th of July? Yes. This was like those breathless Independence lawns where you waited for the first concussion and rushed out on the dewy sidewalks, your hands full of loud miracles. So here they were, the Episcopal Fathers, in the breathing dawn before they pinwheeled off to Mars, leaving their incense through the velvet cathedral of space. Should we go at all? Whispered Father Peregrine. Shouldn't we solve our own sins on Earth? Aren't we running from our lives here? He arose, his fleshly body, with its rich look of strawberries, milk, and steak, moving heavily. Or is it sloth, he wondered. Do I dread the journey? He stepped out into the needle spray shower. But I shall take you to Mars, body, he addressed himself, leaving old sins here, and on to Mars to find new sins, and delightful thought almost, sins no one had ever thought of. Oh, he himself had written a little book, The Problem of Sin on Other Worlds, ignored as somehow not serious enough by his Episcopal brethren. Only last night, over a final cigar, he and Father Stone had talked of it. On Mars, sin might appear as virtue. We must guard against virtuous acts there that later might be found out to be sins, said Father Peregrine, beaming. How exciting! It's been centuries since so much adventure had accompanied the prospect of being a missionary. I will recognize sin, said Father Stone bluntly, even on Mars. Oh, we priests pride ourselves on being litmus paper, changing color in sin's presence, retorted Father Peregrine. But what if Martian chemistry is such we do not color at all? If there are new senses on Mars, you must admit the possibility of unrecognizable sin. If there is no malice aforethought, there is no sin or punishment for same. The Lord assures us that, Father Stone replied. On Earth, yes, but perhaps a Martian sin might inform the subconscious of its evil, telepathically, leaving the conscious mind of man free to act seemingly without malice. What then? What could there be in the way of new sins? Father Peregrine leaned heavily forward. Adam alone did not sin, and Eve and you add temptation. Add a second man and you make adultery possible. With the addition of sex or people, you add sin. If men were armless, they could not strangle with their hands. You would not have that particular sin of murder. And arms, you add the possibility of new violence. Amoebas cannot sin because they reproduce by fusion. They do not covet wives or murder each other. Add sex to amoebas, add arms and legs, and you would have murder and adultery. Add an arm or leg or person, and take away each, and you add or subtract possible evil. On Mars, what if there are 5 new senses, organs, invisible limbs we can't conceive of? Then might there be new sins? Father Stone gasped. I think you enjoy this sort of thing. I keep my mind alive, Father. Just alive is all. Your mind's always juggling, isn't it? Mirrors, torches, plates? Yes, because sometimes the church seems like those post-circus tableaus, where the curtain lifts and men, white zinc oxide talcum powder statues, freeze to represent abstract beauty. Very wonderful, but I hope there will always be room for me to dart about among the statues, don't you, Father Stone? Father Stone had moved away. I think we'd better go to bed. In a few hours we'll be jumping up to see your new sins, Father Peregrine. The rocket stood ready for the firing. The fathers walked from their devotions in the chilly morning, many a fine priest from New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. The church was sitting its best, walking across town for the frosty field. Walking, Father Peregrine remembered the bishop's words. Father Peregrine, You will captain the missionaries, with Father Stone at your side. Having chosen you for this serious task, I find my reasons deplorably obscure, Father, but your pamphlet on planetary sin did not go unread. You are a flexible man, and Mars is like that uncleaned closet we have neglected for millenniums. Sin is collected there like bric-a-brac. Man is twice Earth's age, and has double the number of Saturday night slicker bats and eye-popping at women as naked as white seals. When we open that closet door, things will fall on us. We need a quick, flexible man, and one whose mind can dodge. Anyone a little too dogmatic might break in two. I feel you'll be resilient, Father. The job is yours. The bishop and the fathers knelt. The blessing was said, and the rocket given a little shower of holy water. Arising, the bishop addressed them. I know you will go with God to prepare the Martians for the reception of his truth. I wish you all a thoughtful journey. They filed past the bishop, 20 men in robes, whispering, to deliver their hands into his kind hands before passing into the cleansed projectile. I wonder, said Father Peregrine at the last moment, if Mars is hell, only waiting for our arrival before it bursts into brimstone and fire. Lord be with us, said Father Stone. The rocket moved. Coming out of space was like coming out of the most beautiful cathedral they had ever seen. Touching Mars was like touching the ordinary pavement outside the church 5 minutes after having really known your love for God. The fathers stepped gingerly from the steaming rocket and knelt upon Martian sand, while Father Peregrine gave thanks. Lord, we thank thee for the journey through thy rooms. And Lord, we have reached a new land, so we must have new eyes. We shall hear new sounds and must needs have new ears. And there will be new sins for which we ask the gift of better and firmer and purer hearts. Amen. They arose. And here was Mars like a sea under which they trudged in the guise of submarine biologists seeking life. Here the territory of hidden sin. Oh, how carefully they must all balance, like gray feathers, in this new element, afraid that walking itself might be sinful, or breathing, or simple fasting. And here was the mayor of First Town come to meet them with outstretched hand. What can I do for you, Father Peregrine? We'd like to know about the Martians, for only if we know about them can we plan our church intelligently. Are they 10 feet tall? We will build large doors. Are their skies blue or red or green? We must know when we put human figures in stained glass so we may use the right skin color. Are they heavy? We will build sturdy seats for them. Father, said the mayor, I don't think you should worry about the Martians. There are 2 races. One of them is pretty well dead. A few are in hiding. And the second race, well, they're not quite human. Oh, Father Peregrine's heart quickened. They're round luminous globes of light, Father, living in those hills. Man or beast, who can say? But they act intelligently, I hear. The mayor shrugged. Of course, they're not men, so I don't think you'll care. On the contrary, said Father Peregrine swiftly. Intelligent, you say? There's a story. A prospector broke his leg in those hills and would have died there. The blue spheres of light came at him. When he woke, he was down a highway and didn't know how he got there. Drunk, said Father Stone. That's the story, said the mayor. Father Peregrine, with most of the Martians dead and only these blue spheres, I frankly think you'd be better off in the first city. Mars is opening up. It's a frontier now, like the old days on Earth. Out west in Alaska, men are pouring up here. There's a couple thousand black Irish mechanics and miners and day laborers in First Town who need saving, because there are too many wicked women who came with them, and too much 10-century-old Martian wine. Father Peregrine was gazing into the soft blue hills. Father Stone cleared his throat. Well, Father? Father Peregrine did not hear. Spears of blue fire? Yes, Father. Ah, said Father Peregrine, and sighed. Blue balloons, Father Stone shook his head. A circus! Father Peregrine felt his wrists pounding. He saw the little frontier town with raw, fresh-built sin. He saw the hills, old with the oldest yet, perhaps, and even newer to him, sin. Mayor, could your black Irish laborers cook one more day in hellfire? I'd turn and baste them for you, Father. Father Peregrine nodded to the hills. Then that's where we'll go. There is a murmur from everyone. It would be so simple, explained Father Peregrine, to go into town. I prefer to think that if the Lord walked here and people said, Here's the beaten path, he would reply, Show me the weeds, I will make a path. But, Father Stone, think how it would weigh upon us if we passed sinners by and did not extend our hands. But globes of fire! I imagine man looked funny to other animals when we first appeared, yet he has a soul for all his homeliness. Until we prove otherwise, let us assume that these fiery spheres have souls. All right, agreed the mayor, but you'll be back to town. We'll see. First, some breakfast. Then you and I, Father Stone, will walk alone into the hills. I don't want to frighten these fiery Martians with machines or crowds. Shall we breakfast? The fathers ate in silence. At nightfall, Father Peregrine and Father Stone were high in the hills. They stopped and sat upon a rock to enjoy a moment of relaxation and waiting. The Martians had not as yet appeared, and they both felt vaguely disappointed. "I wonder," Father Peregrine mopped his face, "do you think if we called hello, they might answer? Father Peregrine, won't you ever be serious? Not until the good Lord is. Oh, don't look so terribly shocked, please. The Lord is not serious. In fact, it is a little hard to know just what else he is except loving. And love has to do with humor, doesn't it? For you cannot love someone unless you put up with him, can you? And you cannot put up with someone constantly unless you can laugh at him. Isn't that true? And certainly we are ridiculous little animals wallowing in the fudge bowl, and God must love us all the more because we appeal to his humor." "I never thought of God as humor," said Father Stone. "The creator of the platypus, the camel, the ostrich, and man? Oh, come now," Father Peregrine laughed. But at this instant, from among the twilight hills, like a series of blue lamps lit to guide their way, came the Martians. Father Stone saw them first. "Look!" Father Peregrine turned, and the laughter stopped in his mouth. The round blue globes of fire hovered among the twinkling stars, distantly trembling. "Monsters!" Father Stone leaped out, but Father Peregrine caught him. "Wait! We should have gone to town. No, listen, look!" pleaded Father Peregrine. "I'm afraid. Don't be. This is God's work. The devil's. No, now quiet." Father Peregrine gentled him, and they crouched in the soft blue light in their upturned faces as the fiery orbs drew near. And again the Independence night, thought Father Peregrine, tremoring. He felt like a child back in those July 4th evenings, the sky blowing apart, breaking into powdery stars and burning sound, the concussions jingling the house windows like the ice on 1,000 thin ponds, the aunts, uncles, cousins crying, "Ah," as to some celestial physician, the summer sky colors, and the fire balloons, lit by an indulgent grandfather, steadied in his massively tender hands. Oh, the memory of those lovely fire balloons, softly lighted, warmly billowed bits of tissue, like insect wings, lying like folded wasps in boxes, and last of all, after the days of riot and fury, at long last from their boxes, delicately unfolded, blue, red, white, patriotic, the fire balloons. He saw the dim faces of dear relatives, long dead and mantled with moss, as grandfather lit the tiny candle and let the warm air breathe up from the balloon plumply luminous in his hands, a shining vision which they held, reluctant to let it go. For once released, it was yet another year gone from life, another 4th, another bit of beauty vanished, and then up, up, still up through the warm summer night constellations the fire balloons had drifted, while red, white, and blue eyes followed them wordless from family porches, away into deep Illinois country. Over night rivers and sleeping mansions the fire balloons dwindled, forever gone. Father Peregrine felt tears in his eyes. Above him, the Martians, not one but 1,000 whispering fire balloons, it seemed, hovered. At any moment he might find his long-dead but blessed grandfather at his elbow, staring up at beauty. But it was Father Stone. "Let's go, please, Father. I must speak to them." Father Peregrine wrestled forward, not knowing what to say for what he had ever said to the fire balloons, a time past except with his mind. "You are beautiful, you are beautiful," and that was not enough now. He could only lift his heavy arms and call upward, as he had often wished to call after the enchanted fire balloons, "Hello!" But the fiery spheres only burned like images in a dark mirror. They seemed fixed, gaseous, miraculous forever. "We come with God," said Father Peregrine to the sky. "Silly, silly, silly," Father Stone chewed the back of his hand. "In the name of God, Father Peregrine, stop." But now the phosphorescent spheres blew away into the hills. In a moment they were gone. Father Peregrine called again, and the echo of his last cry shook the hills above. Turning, he saw an avalanche shake out dust, pause, and then with the thunder of stone wheels, crash down the mountain upon them. "Look what you've done!" cried Father Stone. Father Peregrine was almost fascinated, then horrified. He turned, knowing they could run only a few feet before the rocks crushed them into ruins. He had time to whisper, "Oh, Lord," and then the rocks fell. "Father!" They were separated like chaff from wheat. There was a blue shimmering of globes, a shift of cold stars, a roar, and then they stood upon the ledge 200 feet away, watching the spot where their bodies should have been buried under tons of stone. The blue light evaporated. The two fathers clutched each other. "What happened?" "The blue fires lifted us. We ran. That was it." "No, the globes saved us." "They couldn't." "They did." The sky was empty. There was a feel as if the great bell had just stopped tolling. Reverberations lingered in their teeth and marrows. "Let's get away from here. You'll have us killed." "I haven't feared death for a good many years," Father Stone said. Father Stone. "We've proved nothing. Those blue lights ran off at the first cry. It's useless." "No," Father Peregrine was suffused with a stubborn wonder. "Somehow they saved us. That proves they have souls." "It proves only that they might have saved us. Everything was confused. We might have escaped ourselves." They are not animals, Father Stone. Animals do not save lives, especially of strangers. There is mercy and compassion here. Perhaps tomorrow we may prove more. Prove what? How? Father Stone was immensely tired. No, the outrage in his mind and body showed on his still face. Follow them in helicopters, readying chapter and vessel? They're not human. They haven't eyes or ears or bodies like ours, but I feel something about them, replied Father Peregrine. I know a great revelation is at hand. They saved us. They think they had a choice. They let us live or die. That proves free will. Father Stone set to work building a fire, glaring at the sticks in his hands, choking on the grey smoke. I myself will open a convent for nursing geese, a monastery for sainted swine, and I shall build a miniature apse in the microscope so that the paramecium can attend services and tell their beads with their flagella. Oh, Father Stone. I'm sorry, Father Stone blinked redly across the fire. But this is like blessing a crocodile before he chews you up. You're risking the entire missionary expedition. We belong in First Town, washing liquor for men's throats and perfume off their hands. Can't you recognize the human and the inhuman? I'd much rather recognize the inhuman and the human. But if I prove these things sin, know of a moral life, have free will and intellect, Father Stone, that will take much convincing. The night grew rapidly cold, and they peered into the fire to find their wildest thoughts, while eating biscuits and berries, and soon they were bundled up for sleep with the chiming stars. Just before turning over one last time, Father Stone, who had been thinking for many minutes to find something to bother Father Peregrine about, stared into the soft pink charcoal bed and said, No Adam or Eve on Mars. No original sin. Maybe the Martians live in a state of God's grace. Then we can go back down to town and start work on the Earthmen. Father Peregrine reminded himself to say a little prayer for Father Stone, who got so mad and who now, being vindictive, God help him. Yes, Father Stone, but the Martians killed some of our settlers. That's sinful. There must have been an original sin in Martian Adam and Eve. We'll find them. Men are men, unfortunately, no matter what their shape, and inclined to sin. But Father Stone was pretending to sleep. Father Peregrine did not shut his eyes. Of course they couldn't let these Martians go to hell, could they? With a compromise to their consciences, could they go back to their new colonial towns, those towns so full of sinful gullets and women and scintilla eyes and white oyster bodies, rollicking in their beds with lonely laborers? Wasn't that the place for the fathers? Wasn't this trek into the hills merely a personal whim? Was he really thinking of God's church, or was he quenching the thirst of a sponge-like curiosity, those round the blue globes of St. Anthony's fire? How they burned in his mind. What a challenge to find a man behind the mask, the human behind the inhuman. Wouldn't he be proud if he could say, even to his secret self, that he had converted a rolling huge pool table full of fiery spheres? What a sin of pride, worth doing penance for. But then one did many prideful things out of love, and he loved the Lord so much and was so happy at it that he wanted everyone else to be happy too. The last thing he saw before he could sleep was the return of the blue fires, like a flight of burning angels silently singing him to his worried rest. The blue round dreams were still there in the sky when Father Peregrine awoke in the early morning. Father Stone slept like a stiff bundle quietly. Father Peregrine watched the Martians floating and watching him. They were human, he knew it, but he must prove it or face a dry-mouthed, dry-eyed bishop telling him kindly to step aside. But how to prove humanity if they hid in the high vaults of the sky? How to bring them nearer and provide answers to the many questions? They saved us from the avalanche. Father Peregrine arose, moved off among the rocks, and began to climb the nearest hill until he came to a place where a cliff dropped sheerly to a floor 200 feet below. He was choking from his vigorous climb in the frosty air. He stood, getting his breath. If I fell from here, it would surely kill me. He let a pebble drop. Moments later, it clicked on the rocks below. The Lord would never forgive me. He tossed another pebble. It wouldn't be suicide, would it, if I did it out of love? He lifted his gaze to the blue spheres. But first, another try. He called to them. Hello, hello! The echoes tumbled upon each other, but the blue fires did not blink or move. He talked to them for 5 minutes. When he stopped, he peered down and saw Father Stone still indulgently asleep below in the little camp. I must prove everything. Father Peregrine stepped to the cliff rim. I am an old man. I am not afraid. Surely the Lord will understand that I am doing this for him. He drew a deep breath. All his life swam through his eyes, and he thought, "In a moment shall I die? I am afraid that I love living much too much, but I love other things more." And thinking thus, he stepped off the cliff. He fell. "Fool!" he cried. He tumbled end over end. "You were wrong." The rocks rushed up at him, and he saw himself dashed on them and sent to glory. Why did I do this thing? But he knew the answer, and an instant later was calm as he fell. The wind roared around him as the rocks hurled to meet him. And then there was a shift of stars, a glimmering of blue light, and he felt himself surrounded by blueness and suspended. A moment later he was deposited with a gentle bump upon the rocks, where he sat a full moment, alive, and touching himself and looking up at the blue lights that had withdrawn instantly. "You saved me," he whispered. "You wouldn't let me die. You knew it was wrong." He rushed over to Father Stone, who still lay quietly asleep. "Father, Father, wake up!" He shook him and brought him round. "Father, they saved me." "Who saved you?" Father Stone blinked and sat up. Father Peregrine related his experience. "A dream, a nightmare. Go back to sleep," said Father Stone irritably. "You and your circus balloons." "But I was awake." Now, Father, calm yourself. There now. You don't believe me? Have you a gun yet? Here, let me have it." "What are you going to do?" Father Stone handed over the small pistol they had brought along for protection against snakes or other similar and unpredictable animals. Father Peregrine seized the pistol. "I'll prove it." He pointed the pistol as his own hand and fired. "Stop!" There was a shimmer of light, and before their eyes the bullet stood upon the air, poised an inch from his open palm. It hung for a moment, surrounded by a blue phosphorescence. Then it fell hissing into the dust. Father Peregrine fired the gun 3 times, at his hand, at his leg, at his body. The 3 bullets hovered, glittering, and like dead insects fell at their feet. "You see," said Father Peregrine, letting his arm fall, and allowing the pistol to drop after the bullets. "They know, they understand, they are not animals. They think and judge and live in a moral climate. What animal would save me from myself like this? There is no animal who would do that. Only another man, Father. Now do you believe?" Father Stone was watching the sky and the blue lights, and now silently he dropped to one knee and picked up the warm bullets and cupped them in his hands. He closed his hand tight. The sun was rising behind them. "I think we had better go down to the others and tell them of this and bring them back up here," said Father Peregrine. By the time the sun was up, they were well on their way back to the rocket. Father Peregrine drew the round circle in the center of the blackboard. "This is Christ, the Son of the Father." He pretended not to hear the other father's sharp intake of breath. "This is Christ in all his glory," he continued. "It looks like a geometry problem," observed Father Stone. "A fortunate comparison, for we deal with symbols here. Christ is no less Christ, you must admit, in being represented by a circle or a square. For centuries the cross has symbolized his love and agony, so this circle will be the Martian Christ. This is how we shall bring him to Mars." The fathers stirred fretfully and looked at each other. "You, Brother Matthias, will create in a glass a replica of the circle, a globe filled with bright fire. It will stand upon the altar." "A cheap magic trick," muttered Father Stone. Father Peregrine went on patiently. "On the contrary, we are giving them God in an understandable image. If Christ had come to us in earth as an octopus, we would have accepted him readily?" He spread his hands. "Was it then a cheap magic trick of the Lord's to bring us Christ through Jesus in a man's shape? After we bless the church we build here and sanctify its altar in this symbol, do you think Christ would refuse to inhabit the shape before us? You know in your hearts he would not refuse." "But the body of a soulless animal," said Brother Matthias. "We've already gone over that many times since we returned this morning, Brother Matthias. These creatures saved us from the avalanche. They realized that self-destruction was sinful and prevented it. Time after time. Therefore we must build a church in the hills, live with them, and find their own special ways of sinning, the alien ways, and help them to discover God." The fathers did not seem pleased at the prospect. "Is it because they are so odd to the eye?" wondered Father Peregrine. "But what is a shape? Only a cup for the blazing soul that God provides us all. If tomorrow I found out the sea lion suddenly possessed free will, intellect, knew when not to sin, knew what life was, and tempered justice with the mercy and life with love, that I would build an undersea cathedral, and if the sparrows should miraculously, with God's will, gain everlasting souls tomorrow, I would fright a church with helium and take after them, for all the souls, in any shape, if they have free will and are aware of their sin, will burn in hell unless given their rightful communions. I would not let a Martian sphere burn in hell either, for it is a sphere only in mine eyes. When I close my eyes it stands before me, an intelligence, a love, a soul, and I must not deny it." "But that glass globe you wish to place on the altar," protested Father Stone. "Consider the Chinese," replied Father Peregrine imperturbably. What sort of Christ do Christian Chinese worship? An Oriental Christ, naturally. You've all seen Oriental nativity scenes. How is Christ dressed? In Eastern robes. Where does he walk? In Chinese settings of bamboo and misty mountain and crooked tree. His eyelids taper, his cheekbones rise. Each country, each race adds something to our Lord. I'm reminded of the Virgin of Guadalupe, to whom all Mexico pays its love. Her skin, have you noticed in paintings of her? A dark skin like that of her worshippers. Is this blasphemy? Not at all. It is logical. It is not logical that men should accept a God, no matter how real, of another color. I often wonder why our missionaries do well in Africa with a snow-white Christ. Perhaps because white is a sacred color in albino or any other form to the African tribes. Given time, mightn't Christ darken there too? The form does not matter. Content is everything. We cannot expect these Martians to accept an alien form. We shall give them Christ in their own image. There is a flaw in your reasoning, Father, said Father Stone. Won't the Martians suspect us of hypocrisy? They will realize that we don't worship a round globular Christ, but a man with limbs and a head. How do we explain the difference? By showing them there is none. Christ will fill any vessel that is offered. Bodies or globes, he is there, and each will worship the same thing in a different guise. What is more, we must believe in this globe we give the Martians. We must believe in a shape which is meaningless to us and to form. This spheroid will be Christ, and we will remember that we ourselves, in the shape of our Earth Christ, would be meaningless, ridiculous, a squander of material to these Martians. Father Peregrine laid aside his chalk. Now let us go into the hills and build our church. The fathers began to pack their equipment. The church was not a church, but an area of cleared of rocks. A plateau on one of the low mountains, its soil smoothed and brushed, an altar established whereon Brother Maltius placed the fiery globe he had constructed. At the end of 6 days of work, the church was ready. What shall we do with this? Father Stone tapped an iron bell they had brought along. What does a bell mean to them? I imagine I brought it for our own comfort, admitted Father Peregrine. We need a few familiarities. This church seems so little like a church. We feel somewhat absurd here, even I, for it's something new. This business of converting the creatures of another world. I feel like a ridiculous play actor sometimes, and then I pray to God to lend me strength. Many of the fathers are unhappy. Some of them joke about all this, Father Peregrine. I know. We put this bell in a spell tower for their comfort anyway. What about the organ? We'll play it at the first service tomorrow. But the Martians, I know, but again I suppose for our own comfort, our own music. Later we may discover theirs. They arose very early on Sunday morning and then moved through the coldness like pale phantoms. Rhyme tinkling on their habits, covered with chimes they were, shaking down showers of silver water. I wonder if it is Sunday here on Mars, mused Father Peregrine, but seeing Father Stone wince, he hastened on. It might be Tuesday or Thursday, who knows, but no matter, my idle fancy. It's Sunday to us. Come. The fathers walked into the flat, wide area of the church and knelt, shivering and blue-lit. Father Peregrine said a little prayer and put his cold fingers to the organ keys. The music went up like a flight of pretty birds. He touched the keys like a man moving his hands among the weeds of a wild garden, starting up a great soarings of beauty into the hills. The music calmed the air. It smelled the fresh smell of morning. The music drifted into the mountains and shook down mineral powders in a dusty rain. The fathers waited. Well, Father Peregrine, Father Stone eyed the empty sky where the sun was rising furnace red. I don't see our friends. Let me try again. Father Peregrine was perspiring. He built an architecture, a box stone by exquisite stone, raising a music cathedral so vast that its furthest channels were in Nineveh, its furthest dome in St. Peter's left hand. The music stayed and did not crash and ruin when it was over, but partook of a series of white clouds and was carried away among other lands. The sky was still empty. They'll come, but Father Peregrine felt the panic in his chest, very small and growing. Let us pray. Let us ask them to come. They read minds. They know. The fathers lowered themselves yet again. In rustlings and whispers they prayed. And to the east, out of the icy mountains of 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, or perhaps Thursday morning, or maybe Monday morning on Mars, came the soft fiery globes. They hovered and sank and filled the area around the shivering priests. Thank you, oh thank you, Lord. Father Peregrine shut his eyes tight and prayed the music. And when it was done, he turned and gazed upon his wondrous congregation, and a voice touched his mind, and the voice said, We have come for a little while. You may stay, said Father Peregrine. For a little while only, said the voice quietly. We have come to tell you certain things. We should have spoken sooner, but we had hoped that you might go on your way if left alone. Father Peregrine started to speak, but the voice hushed him. "We are the old ones," the voice said, and it entered him like a blue gaseous flare and burned the chambers of his head. "We are the old Martians, who left our marble cities and went into the hills, forsaking the material life we had lived. So very long ago we became these things that we now are. Once we were men, with bodies and legs and arms such as yours. The legend has it that one of us, a good man, discovered a way to free man's soul and intellect, to free him of bodily ills and melancholies, of deaths and transfigurations, of ill humors and senilities. And so we took on the look of lightning and blue fire, and have lived in the winds and skies and hills forever after that, neither prideful nor arrogant, neither rich nor poor, passionate nor cold. We have lived apart from those we left behind, those other men of the world. And how we came to be this has been forgotten, the process lost, but we shall never die nor do harm. We have put away the sins of the body and live in God's grace. We covet no other property, we have no other property. We do not steal, nor kill, nor lust, nor hate. We live in happiness. We cannot reproduce, we do not eat or drink or make war. All the sensualities and childishness and sins of the body were stripped away when our bodies were put aside. We have left sin behind, Father Peregrine, and it is burned like the leaves in the autumn, and it is gone like the soiled snow of an evil winter, and it is gone like the sexual flowers of a red and yellow spring, and it is gone like the panting nights of a hottest summer. And our season is temperate, and our clime is rich in thought." Father Peregrine was standing now, for the voice touched him at such a pitch that it almost shook him from his senses. It was an ecstasy and a fire washing through him. "We wish to tell you that we appreciate your building this place for us, but we have no need of it, for each of us is a temple unto itself, and needs no place wherein to cleanse himself. Forgive us for not coming to you sooner, but we are separate and apart, and have talked to no one for 10,000 years, nor have we interfered in any way with the life of this planet. It has come into your mind now that we are the lilies of the field. We toil not, neither do we spin. You are right, and so we suggest that you take the parts of this temple into your own new cities, and there cleanse others, for rest assured we are happy and at peace." The fathers were on their knees in the vast blue light, and Father Peregrine was down too, and they were weeping, and it did not matter that their time had been wasted. It did not matter to them at all. The blue spheres murmured and began to rise once more, and a breath of cool air. "May I?" cried Father Peregrine, not daring to ask, eyes closed. "May I come again some day, that I may learn from you?" The blue fires blazed. The air trembled. Yes, some day he might come again, some day. And then the fire balloons blew away and were gone, and he was like a child on his knees, tears streaming from his eyes, crying to himself, come back, and any moment Grandfather might lift him and carry him upstairs to his bedroom in a long-gone Ohio town. They filed down out of the hills at sunset. Looking back, Father Peregrine saw the blue fires burning. "No," he thought, "we couldn't build a church for the likes of you. Your beauty itself, what church would compete with the fireworks of the pure soul?" Father Stone moved in silence beside him, and at last he spoke. "The way I see it is, there's a truth on every planet, all parts of the big truth. On a certain day they'll all fit together like the pieces of jigsaw. This has been a shaking experience. I'll never doubt again, Father Peregrine, for this truth here is as true as earth's truth, and they lie side by side, and will go on to other worlds, adding the sum of the parts to the truth until one day the whole total will stand before us like the light of a new day. That's a lot coming from you, Father Stone. I'm sorry now, in a way. We're going down to the town to handle our own kind. Those blue lights now. When they settled about us, and that voice," Father Stone shivered. Father Peregrine reached up to take the other's arm. They walked together, and you know, said Father Stone finally, fixing his eyes on Brother Matthias, who strode ahead with the glass sphere tenderly carried in his arms, that glass sphere with the blue phosphorus light glowing forever inside it. "You know, Father Peregrine, that globe there, yes? It's him, after all." Father Peregrine smiled, and they walked down out of the hills toward the new town. The last night of the world. What would you do if you knew that this was the last night of the world? What would I do? You mean seriously? Yes, seriously. I don't know, I hadn't thought. He poured some coffee. In the background, the two girls were playing blocks on the parlor rug in the light of the green hurricane lamps. There was an easy, clean aroma of the brewed coffee in the evening air. Well, better start thinking about it, he said. You don't mean it. He nodded. A war? He shook his head. Not the hydrogen or atom bomb? No. Or germ warfare? None of those at all, he said, stirring his coffee slowly. But let's just say the closing of a book. I don't think I understand. No, nor do I, really. It's just a feeling. Sometimes it frightens me. Sometimes I'm not frightened at all, but at peace. He glanced in at the girls and their yellow hair shining in the lamplight. I didn't say anything to you. It first happened about 4 nights ago. What? A dream I had. I dreamed that it was all going to be over, and a voice said it was. Not any kind of voice I can remember, but a voice anyway, and it said things would stop. Here on Earth, and I didn't think too much about it the next day. But then I went to the office and got Stan Willis looking out of the window in the middle of the afternoon, and I said, a penny for your thoughts, Stan, and he said, I had a dream last night, and before he could even tell me what the dream, I knew what it was. I could have told him, but he told me, and I listened to him. It was the same dream? The same. I told Stan I had dreamed it too. He didn't seem surprised. He relaxed, in fact. Then we started walking through the office for the heck of it. It wasn't planned. We didn't say, let's walk around. We just walked on our own, and everywhere we saw people looking at their desks or their hands or the windows. I talked to a few, so did Stan. And they all had dreamed? All of them. The same dream, with no difference. Did you believe in it? Yes, I've never been more certain. And when will it stop? The world, I mean. Sometime during the night for us, and then as the night goes on around the world, that'll go too. It'll take 24 hours for it all to go. They sat a while not touching their coffee. Then they lifted it slowly and drank, looking at each other. Do we deserve this? She said. It's not a matter of deserving, it's just that things don't work out. I noticed you didn't even argue about this. Why not? I guess I have a reason, she said. The same one everyone at the office had? She nodded slowly. I didn't want to say anything. It happened last night, and the women on the block talked about it among themselves today. They dreamed. I thought it was only a coincidence. She picked up the evening paper. There's nothing in the paper about it. Everyone knows, so there's no need. He sat back in his chair watching her. Are you afraid? No, I always thought it would be, but I'm not. Where's that spirit called self-preservation they talk so much about? I don't know. You don't get too excited when you feel things are logical. This is logical. Nothing else but this could have happened from the way we've lived. We haven't been too bad, have we? No, nor enormously good. I suppose that's the trouble. We haven't been very much of anything except us, while a big part of the world was busy being lots of quite awful things. The girls were laughing in the parlor. I always thought people would be screaming in the streets at a time like this. I guess not. You don't scream about the real things. Do you know, I won't miss anything but you and the girls. I never liked cities or my work or anything except you three. I won't miss a thing except perhaps the change in the weather and a glass of ice water when it's hot, and I might miss sleeping. How can we sit here and talk this way? Because there's nothing else to do. That's it, of course, for if it were, we'd be doing it. I suppose this is the first time in the history of the world that everyone has known just what they were going to do during the night. I wonder what everyone else will do now, this evening, for the next few hours. Go to a show, listen to the radio, watch television, play cards, put the children to bed, go to bed themselves, like always. In a way, that's something to be proud of, like always. They sat a moment, and then he poured himself another coffee. Why do you suppose it's tonight? Because. Why not some other night in the last century, or 5 centuries ago, or 10? Maybe because it was never October 19, 1969. Ever before in history. And now it is, and that's it, because this date means more than any other date ever meant, because it's the year when things are as they are all over the world, and that's why it's the end. There are bombers on their schedules both ways across the ocean tonight, and that'll never see land. That's part of the reason why. Well, he said, getting up, what shall it be? Wash the dishes? They washed the dishes and stacked them away with special neatness. At 8:30 the girls were put to bed and kissed goodnight, and the little lights by their beds turned on, and the door left open just a trifle. I wonder, said the husband, coming from the bedroom and glancing back, standing there with his pipe for a moment. What? If the door will be shut all the way, or if it'll be left just a little ajar so some light comes in. I wonder if the children know. No, of course not. They sat down and read the papers and talked and listened to some radio music, and then sat together by the fireplace watching the charcoal embers as the clock struck 10:30. at 11 and 11:30. They thought of all the other people in the world who had spent their evening, each in his own special way. "Well," he said at last. He kissed his wife for a long time. "We've been good for each other, anyway." "Do you want to cry?" he asked. "I don't think so." They moved through the house and turned out the lights and went into the bedroom door and stood in the night, cool darkness, undressing and pushing back the covers. "The sheets are so clean and nice." "I'm tired." "We're all tired." They got into bed and lay back. "Just a moment," she said. He heard her get out of bed and go into the kitchen. A moment later she returned. "I left the water running in the sink," she said. Something about this was so very funny that he had to laugh. She laughed with him, knowing what it was that she had done that was funny. They stopped laughing at last and lay in their cool night bed. Their hands clasped their heads together. "Good night," he said after a moment. "Good night," she said.